I wonder if you have ever struggled with feeling pressure that Christmas has to be perfect. I think it's something that plagues many of us, that sense of wanting or needing it to be a day when nothing goes wrong, nobody argues, the gifts are all exactly what was wanted, the tree sparkles, the food is delightful, it snows but nobody has to drive anywhere. And above all, everyone experiences a good dose of Christmas spirit. It's like a tingle down your spine as you warm your toes by the fire. Isn't that the image in our heads? But this fourth Sunday of Advent takes us on a very different journey. Today's gospel reading starts with a disaster. Joseph is engaged to a nice young woman, and then, horror of horrors, he finds out that she is expecting a baby, and it is not his. Now, back then, being engaged was very serious. It was seen as having entered a contract. It was the first step of being married. So this turn of events is really shocking in every way. It's a betrayal, an insult, a breach of contract, and justifiably a reason to end this marriage before it goes any further. The future that Joseph thought he was stepping into is suddenly tainted, uncertain, full of confusion and humiliation. It is far from being perfect. And yet, even in the midst of all of this, we see faith. We know that Mary had the faith to say yes in the first place, and now we see that Joseph, too, has a heart turned towards God. Firstly, his plan to end the marriage discreetly shields Mary from public disgrace and punishment. Considering the situation he finds himself in and the assumed betrayal committed by Mary, this is an act of great grace. And then God sends him an angel in a dream, telling him about the baby, and with no more concrete evidence than just a dream, Joseph trusts God enough to go ahead to build his family with Mary and this mysterious baby, the firstborn son who is not his own, but who he names and adopts. That is great faith. Faith that holds constant even in the face of difficult circumstances and unexpected changes. And this is the faith that the season of Advent steers us towards. These weeks we've been going through of waiting and anticipation remind us that no matter what is happening to us or around us, God's presence is assured. When the angel appears in Joseph's dream, the first thing the angel does is speak to Joseph by name, assuring him that he is known, that God is aware of him on a very close basis. And then the second thing the angel says is that familiar phrase that Jesus himself grows up to use so many times. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to take your unexpectedly pregnant fiancée as your wife. Do not be afraid of what people might say, of the whispers that might fly. Do not be afraid to take this child as your own son. Do not be afraid to do as God asks, even if it leads you into a future you did not anticipate, even if it feels far from perfect. My 2-year-old has loved having a chocolate advent calendar this year. She doesn't know why it's happening, but she is delighted that she gets chocolate every day. However, I suspect that when it's finished, there may be 1 or 2 meltdowns over this grand tradition not continuing forevermore. She doesn't understand that it's a seasonal treat that will return in 11 months. So I also suspect that Christmas Day itself may include a tantrum or 2, just because she's at that age. At 2-year-olds, sometimes a tantrum happens for inexplicable reasons. But even if it's messy and stressful and includes some lying on the floor and screaming, we will celebrate God with us, because that is the joy of Christmas and the truth of the angel's message to Joseph. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, because God is coming, because God steps with us into the unexpected and the messy. That is how this story is still our story. We live out the liturgical calendar where every single year we enter into waiting for the beginning of something we already know the end to. In 11 months, we will all start all over again. But it is new every time because we are new every time. Every Advent, we are a year older than we were before. We've experienced another year of life. Our circumstances or relationships have changed. We have been through ups and downs. But God is always there, inviting us to not be afraid, inviting us to trust. And in all the stress and meltdowns of the world we live in, Joseph shows us that trust does not mean the absence of anxiety, but it means refusing to let anxiety have the final word. Faithfulness in today's gospel reading looks like patience. It looks like caring for others. It looks like staying present when it would be far easier to just walk away. It looks like listening to the whisper of God and continuing to do those ordinary, everyday acts that make space for God to work among us. Now, this doesn't come naturally. We often find ourselves carrying disappointment, frustration, and fear alongside our hope. The temptation in these moments is to assume that maybe God is distant or waiting for things to improve before drawing near again. But that's where the promise of the name Emmanuel, God with us, says otherwise. God is with us now. Not when everything is resolved, not when we feel calm or confident or certain about the future, not when the day is perfect. But God is with us in the in-between, in the waiting, in the discomfort of not knowing what comes next. Christmas does not arrive because everything goes to plan or because we have managed to prepare enough for a perfect day. It arrives because God chose to enter human life as it actually is, complicated, fragile, unfinished. And thankfully, God's presence does not depend on us, but on God's faithfulness, which is constant. So today, on the last Sunday of Advent, Joseph finds himself waiting for the birth of this promised child. Unexpected, overturning plans, asking for great trust before he's even born. And God is there in all of it, closer than we realize, about to be in the midst of us once again in a new way. And so as we wait, ourselves messy and unfinished, may we hold the angel's words in our own hearts. Do not be afraid, for God is with us. God is here. God is coming in Emmanuel. Amen.